Hello, good morning. Welcome to another lesson in that series. I hope you're all well. Let me know how are you feeling today. It's a really sunny day now. The weather forecast was saying that it was supposed to be raining all day today in Edinburgh. It probably change in 15 minutes by the time the live will finish, but for now it's really lovely. I'm really happy to be here again after the break last week. It felt quite strange not to have the live and just sit on the train on Friday morning. So really happy to be here with you again. Just an update. You might have noticed that the Facebook page has changed the name. Now it's called Discover the Harp with Zuzanna. And I've been thinking about that change for a while now because that's a name that was kind of going around in my head for quite a long time. And I finally decided to do it because I think it will better reflect what this page will be about. I want to share not only materials for learners, for beginner harpists, for students, also for anyone interested in playing the harp to find out more about what it is like and show tips and advice for practice and playing. I also share things from everyday life of a harpist because I think many people find it interesting. I was getting a few questions last week, what it is like and what do you have to do, what do you have to learn and so on. So I hope you like it. And about today's topic. So it's, materials are in the link. If you click the link on the description of the Facebook Live, it will take you to the page from where you can download the materials, the PDF. On Instagram, as I said in the story, you just click in the link in the bio and that's the very first post at the top of the page. And you just have to leave your email and then you will get access to all the materials, not only from this live, but all the previous ones. And yeah, the topic of today, the warm-up, is one of my favorite ones. And it's funny that I've only remembered to do it today because I think it should be one of the first ones, but you never know until you get there what it will be. And I have a confession to make actually about warm-up. Despite being my favorite topic, I think I'm not, how to say, I was not pushing, but I was not encouraging my students to look at this enough. Of course, with beginner students, they are getting a lot of exercises from me because I think at the beginning it's quite important to focus, have something where you can focus only on your fingers and not too much on the rhythm or melody or things like that. So beginners will always get lots of exercises, but later when the pieces become more complicated, the time of the lesson doesn't simply allow to spend enough time on this, but I think I'm going to change it. And I was just wondering, what is your preference when it comes to warm-up? Because I kind of assume that my students are all doing it anyway, whether I'm asking them or not. I thought it was a given that when you play the harp, you start from doing scales, arpeggios, or something like that before you go to pieces. But now that I'm thinking about it, probably not everyone is like that. And if there are any students watching that not only harpists but other instrumentalists, I was wondering, do you like your teacher to check on you and ask you every now and then, what is it that you're doing for a warm-up? Or would you rather have that as something that you're only in charge? I remember one of my teachers, Imogen Barford from Guildhall, she actually had asked me to bring a little notebook with a stave to every lesson, and she was writing down exercises for me. That was mostly at the beginning of my time with her. Later, again, I think it was just not enough time for the pieces, or hopefully maybe my technique got better, but I still have that exercise notebook, and I have also my own routine which I like to do before starting practicing, from which I usually start practice. And I think that's a really good idea, not only because you don't overanalyze when you come to practicing. You don't think, oh, I need to practice, but which piece I should start with, or thinking, oh my gosh, there is so much to practice, I don't know where to start. So you just sit down and do your warm-up, and that's why it's really good to have something that you do every time because then your fingers sort of can switch on autopilot. You have that moment of transition as well into practice. You might be still thinking about whatever you left behind while going through the movements, but you're already changing from thinking about everything else to the practice. Also, it's just good to do something which is very similar every day, because then you check on the health of your fingers. You see, how do they feel today? Do they feel better? Is there any sort of unexpected pain? And you will know straight away that there is something if you're doing exactly the same warm-up every day. Then you can use the warm-up to throw in all sorts of tricky things from the pieces. Sometimes it's better to separate them from the pieces, because when you go over and over one place in a piece all the time, you might just get frustrated that you can't move on with the piece. But when it's part of your warm-up, you just do it and don't think about it so much. And sometimes in separation from the piece, these kind of issues become much clearer when you do them on their own as a part of all your other exercises. Why else? I think it's important to do warm-up. When you're professional musician, or when you're very busy and you don't have as much time to practice and keep your finger in shape, for example, you're on tour with an orchestra, or you just had lots going on, it's really good to have 5, 10, 15 minutes routine to do every day, to just keep your fingers moving. And I heard that from many professional harpists saying that when they only have maybe 10 minutes of time after they unpack the harp is in the rehearsal venue, then they just do exercises, because there's no time to practice, as opposed to other musicians. We can't take the harp to our hotel room or wherever we are. It's most of the time locked up in a van or on the way in a truck, and you only see it on the day of the concert and hope that there are no broken strings. And one last thing, if you perform or if you're doing exams, it's really good to have something that you do all the time, that you can do almost in your sleep, because then it calms you down when you're in an exam situation. If you turn up for an exam or concert and you try do some of your pieces, it's quite likely that because you're stressed, there will be already some mistakes, and then you can just work yourself up immensely, thinking, oh, what it will happen in the concert. And usually, of course, it does happen in the concert. So better not to do too much of your pieces. Just do something that you've been doing every day, which will put you in the right frame of mind, which will be almost like a meditative thing when you're approaching the harp, when you're moving on to the performance zone, practice zone, playing zone, and so on. And and I think it should be something like almost a recipe book, a cookery book, where you put together all your exercises. You can write them down. You don't have to, but I know quite a few harpists who have a little notebook where they put the exercises that they like to do. I think quite a few people who are working as professional harpists in the UK have heard about Rachel Masters, the principal harpist of Delphio, and her famous notebook, where she gathered exercises that are supposed to keep her in shape when she doesn't have that much time to practice while in the orchestra. And I've got something like that. It's not exactly written down, although what you will download from the website is very, very close to what I'm actually doing as my warm-up every day. But I think it should be something that you add to while you develop, while you're growing with your playing. And at the beginning, when you're learning, it's quite good to consult it with your teacher. If they are not the pushy ones pushing you to the warm-up, it's good to ask them, what do you think I should do for my exercises? What I could use as my practice routine, which bits of the pieces I should throw into that first 5 minutes of playing. And if you are self-taught and you don't have a teacher, message me and I'll be happy to help give you a little consultation lesson on what do I think you could do for your warm-up, or how you should modify those exercises. If there's anything in particular you think you need, we'll be very happy to help. And moving on to the topic and the exercise, 2 pages of exercises. Before actually something that's written down, quite a few harpists and teachers, including myself, are advocates of physical warm-up before you actually start playing. When I was at the Guildhall, we had a great class called Body Matters. The teacher, one of the 2 teachers, was a physiotherapist and a former dancer, and she was encouraging us a lot to do physical warm-up, like running up and down the stairs, do 5 minutes of aerobic, something to get your heartbeat rate a bit up, get your blood going all the way around the body, because the likelihood of injuries is much lower when your body is completely warmed up. Not only your fingers, but also the forearms, arms, shoulders, your back, everything. For pedal harpists, also legs, although it is really important for everyone. So she recommended, if you haven't got anything else to do, running up and down the stairs. I do 10 minutes of yoga every morning. It's more like 8 minutes of yoga. It doesn't have to be a lot, but something to just get your body moving, just to wake yourself up. Also, the blood going to the brain is something which will really help you to focus on the things. If you're quite sleepy, if it's the first thing in the morning or the last thing in the evening, and you feel a bit, then it's really good to get moving, and that will help your brain to work, and you will be much more effective. And the practice in the end will take much less time when you do it. And then on to the exercises. Once you're feeling all warmed up and everything, I'm just looking to the side because here are my notes. It's quite hard to remember everything that I wanted to say, and I've got a lot to say today, so referring to all my notes. First exercise, if you have the practice PDF in front of you, you will see that I'm starting from chords, and the exercise you will see is just, let me set up that to C major, so you will hear exactly what I'm playing. One note, if you just started playing the harp and you only use 2 fingers or 1 finger, then click to the link in that PDF. It will take you to the lives number 8 and 9, where I'm talking about exercises for 2 fingers and exercises for 3 fingers. There will be a really good warm-up routine if you've just started, if you're very new to the harp. But otherwise, you can start with that exercise on chords, where you take first finger and second. You can start in any key, really, any notes. Here I'm starting on middle C and E, and then you just go up the harp playing thirds. And so on. Then I'm going down and I'm swapping actually to second and third finger, second on D, third on B, and I'm again playing a scale in thirds. And so on, and then I'm switching to third and fourth, which can be quite tricky if you haven't done that. Try to have them sounding at the same time. What do I mean have them sounding at the same time? So sometimes when your fingers are not when you're not quite in control of your fingers, you can hear something like that. Or, although the first one is probably a bit more frequent. So when that happens, try to think which finger is the one which is delayed, and think a lot about that finger. That will bring the strength to that finger. So eventually you will want to hear that as if it was one note, yeah? Something that I actually do, that I like to do with that exercise, when you go down the page, you will see something called jumps. And what I quite like to do is use the same warm-up, but going up octaves and then moving on to the next note. So what I'm actually doing, let me move to G major. Again, doesn't matter what key you are in. You can practice that in all sorts of different keys. I chose that because that means that you're in the region of the harp, quite easy. And what I do with jumps is that. Still 1, 2, then moving on. Still 1, 2. And then I'm switching to 2, 3. If that's too high, you can move an octave lower. I'm still playing 2, 3, D and F. Here I'm switching to 3 and 4. And I finish with 3, 4, 4, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. You can also do 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, and going down. Yeah, again, the page that you got here is just a blueprint, and you can just try to change it and into small variations to reflect best what you need. I'm changing things all the time depending on which mood I'm in. And here we've got several options that can make it more interesting. If you're bored, or if you want to practice different things, for example, with that exercise, I sometimes change the interval from third to fourth. So I'm playing, for example, C, G. Then when I'm playing hands together, because I often do that exercise playing hands together, instead of playing them in octaves, I sometimes change it so I have, for example, a chord, a first inversion chord. So left hand G, B, right hand E, G, and it sounds like that. Oops. That's actually when it gets hard. Let me do it again. So G, B, E, then I can switch to 3, 4. Again, 3, 5. Yeah, you have to focus on that. You can't really do live and at the same time do that exercise, but it's very good for your brain as well, for coordinating different things on the harp. Then you can also have one hand going 3, 4, the other hand going, one hand 3, 4 in thirds, the other 3, 4 and fourths. For example, what would be nice? Maybe that will sound quite funny, but it is also nice to get your second harmonies. And you can just mix and match it. And another thing you can do is have the hands going on different notes in opposite directions. For example, my left hand will do 1, 2, G, B, right hand will do C, E, 3, 4, and I will have this. Oh, running out of strings on this harp. So lots of different ways how you can make it more interesting for yourself and challenge yourself every day a bit more. The next exercise is arpeggios, and this is actually arpeggios and placing, because the very important thing when you do the exercise from here is placing 4, 3, 2 at the same time. And when you do that and you're just starting out and you don't know exactly when to place, it's quite good to make it rhythmical, to separate placing from the rhythm, as I said before in all the exercises. So you can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Oops, one more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay. And then when you're giving yourself, when you're dividing the quavers from the exercise into semi-quavers, thinking that there's 2 semi-quavers per each, then you can place on the third semi-quaver 3 and is the bit where you do the placing. That's quite important. Later, you'll be, of course, placing almost instantly the moment you play the thumb. But at the beginning, it's quite important to push your fingers to get on the strings at the same time. And then when I do my warm-up from my cookery book, I do the shape going up, the same shape going down, then moving my finger up and down, moving my third finger up and down, moving second finger up, moving the thumb up, and from there it repeats. You move the third finger up, and so on. You can also practice that going down. In that case, you start with moving the thumb. So first you're in the shape of the dominant 7. Move the thumb one down. Move second one down. And so on. It just depends whether you prefer to go down or up. Another option is to change from the shape of dominant 7, so from having one string between each finger to having the thumb, repeating the note from the thumb. And then what I would recommend is moving your second finger first, then third one up, and then third and fourth moving. Yeah, it just depends whether your pieces have more arpeggios in that shape or than sevenths, it's again up to you. And then when you put hands together, there are lots of fun ways to practice that exercise. So you can practice them just in octaves. Then you can have left hand slightly delayed, so right hand starting with quavers. Also messes up quite a bit with your brain. It's quite hard to have the fingers doing different things. Another level up will be having them doing different shapes. So for example, right hand starting as it is, left hand starting with the one level up, so the forefinger on D. Then the right hand moving forefinger, left hand moving third. And so on. Yeah, or going in the opposite direction, so having the left hand starting from the thumb, right hand starting from fourth. It's lots of nice things, not only for your fingers, but also to keep your brain engaged and interested. And I have to say that this particular exercise, the one with the arpeggios, is the one that I'm using when I have hardly any time to warm up, because that's all my fingers moving, and the chords give it quite a nice sense of warm up. They basically warm up really fast somehow, especially if I do the one with left hand and right hand. It takes about 1 minute, I think, to go. You can choose whether you do a full octave or not, but in less than 2 minutes, my fingers are ready to play, basically. I mean, it's not the nice full warm-up that we would like to do every day, but they are fine to do whatever is for them. And then the last exercise on the second page, don't be scared that it takes the whole page. It's just that I wanted to write out for you the pattern. The pattern is just the first 2 lines, but because it changes quite a lot, it might be easier to follow if you got it all written out. And one remark, if you are new to scales, if you haven't done scales before, go and check my live number 7 on exercises and scales. You will find the link to that in the PDF. There is also a printout PDF with exercises and scales I would recommend doing before attempting that exercise, which is slightly more advanced. This one is taken from a book called Conditioning Exercises for the Harp by Carlos Salcedo. And it's again my modification on this. In Salcedo book, he only uses 4 fingers, 4 fingers, 4 fingers. And I've added 3 fingers version of fingering, just to practice scales with not only coming under 4th finger, but also coming under with 3rd finger. I just if there are any comments or if there are any questions. Thank you for sending the likes. Thank you for sending smiles and all the waves. I didn't see any questions. If there's anything I missed, just send it again, please, in case it's not showing up, or message me afterwards if there's anything that you would not like everyone to see. So on to the scales exercise. You have to start quite low on the harp, even with the right hand. With the left hand, you will probably start even an octave lower, but for the right hand, with 4 finger on the C below middle C, thumb on G, and then we go thumb, place all 4 fingers. Let me change to C major, and then we go 4, 4, 4, 4, and then 1, 2, 4, 4, all the way to the end. Then your thumb goes up 6 to A, play the thumb, place 4 on D, and then place 4 fingers on, and then you go 3, 3, 3, 3, 1, 2, again 3, 3, 3, 3, and 4, and again a thumb 6 higher, 4th on E, 4 fingers, and then you go with 4 again, just like the beginning, and then again go down in 4, come up again with 3, and so on. It's all written out in the exercise, and that pattern repeats. When you go to the top, you have the option of doing either 1, 2, 1, 2, or you can do 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2. That exercise is something that I was using a lot when I was at the college. I was using it as an interest interesting combo between scales and trills. So what I was doing, I was playing the scale quite slowly, because at that time I was working quite a lot on making sure that my fourth finger is low, thumb is high. I was struggling with scale quite a lot for quite a long time. You might be surprised to hear that, but that's true. So I was playing the scale really slowly. Playing the trill, sometimes the trill at the top twice as fast. Yeah, because that, and also doing that for much longer. I think I was doing. Yeah, so you can, as I said, you can modify them and change them as much as you like to make them suited for whatever is your need. And you don't have to do the whole page. You can just do 2 or 4 or whatever, just make it suit you. What's quite important in that exercise, and also in the exercise 2, the one with the jumps, is to keep your elbow quite free and think that your elbow is leading the way in the scales. I think that's something which I found difficult when playing the scales. I never knew where exactly shall I move my hand. Of course, when you go up the harp, you have to move your hand. You cannot just stay glued and just hope for the best. And that exercise is quite good. The one from the beginning is quite good to free your hand and let it go up and down, get it used to moving up and down the harp. So then when you get to the exercise with the scales, it's quite free and you just let it glide along the soundboard on the harp. I think I can see a comment. Let me see what's that. Silly question from Elisa. There are no silly questions, Elisa, don't worry. Lots of beginners ask this one. How do you know when you're warmed enough? Oh, that's interesting. I never had this question from a beginner. I think if you're doing same exercises every day, at first they are challenging. Even if it's something as easy as the first harp book, the one where you hold 2 fingers on and you plug second only and the thumb only. At the beginning, you will find that challenging. I think when you're getting more and more advanced, it should get easy. But still, if you're not warmed up enough, it might just feel awkward to do that. And then it should get easier as you're getting more and more warmed up. So that would be my answer if I get asked that by a beginner. Also, another thing is, I suppose, a good indication is how warm are your hands. I know there are people like me whose hands are most of the time cold, and it's really hard to say whether you're warmed up or not. I think in general, if you feel that your hands are warm, you're okay to carry on playing. If they are cold, try warming up a bit more, or have a cup of tea, sip a cup of tea, or just hold your hands around the cup. Make sure it's not too warm. And I would just say, see how your fingers feel. I think when you do quite a lot of exercises, you will be able to tell whether the exercise is challenging or is it just your fingers being cold. It's something which comes with age, but I think even within your first 2 or 3 weeks of playing, that should be enough time for you to be able to say whether it's the fingers being cold or whether it's the exercise which is slightly challenging, or whether it's both. If there's anyone else who would like to chip in to answer to Elisa's questions, I'm just thinking about this on the spot. I never actually had a student asking me about that. Please reply in the comments, and Elisa will be able to see on Instagram, or if I see someone posting about this on Facebook, I will just read it out loud so we all know. And about that exercise, about silent exercise, because I also promised you a silent version of these exercises, and actually there were a couple of times when I was at Glyndebourne. We were playing after the interval, but we were not in the pit with everyone else. We were among the audience, and there was always a moment just before the second interval started that the noise was coming down a little bit, and we didn't feel that it was quite appropriate to, bang out the whole scale or something. So what I was doing, I was taking exercise number, there's no number, but it's exercise called arpeggios and placing. And I was placing one of my hands on the strings and using the other hand to warm up and going. Of course, it won't make, it will make still some noise, but it will be the different sort of noise than going on when someone can clearly tell that you're playing. You can use that when orchestra is tuning if you don't want to interrupt, or you can use that if it's midnight and you don't want to disrupt your neighbors, but you still want to get your fingers moving because you have a lesson tomorrow or whatever else. And you can just carry on. Then you can put your right hand, you probably will need to put your right hand a bit higher to give the left hand some space, and then you can go. Yeah, I'm using this one because that's the one I go to when I have very little time to warm up, because as I said, it takes me a minute or two and my fingers are ready for action. So that's one tip. Another thing, another few things you can do when in a situation you have to stay quiet, but you want your hands to be warmed up. You can get a squeezable ball like the one you would throw to your dog, but maybe don't share it with your dog if you can, unless you really want to. And keep it on your lap and just squeeze it when you're about to go to play. Just don't drop the ball if you can. And you can get them at different level of hardness or squeeziness depending what your needs are. How do you want your fingers to play? Another thing that you can do is this kind of movement. As I say, trying to clap with one hand, because first it reminds you about articulating, about the nice feelings when you play a note and your fingers go inside the hand. That's quite good for a warm-up, and it doesn't make too much noise. I don't know how you can limit that noise even further, but you just have to try to find your own way. And another thing to remind my fingers what is it like to feel good is giving them a little bit of yoga for fingers. And what I do is I take my second and thumb of the either hand and just put them between the fingers. It's not to try to move them really far apart from one another. It's more to let them feel what it's like, that space between them, because most of the times they stay like that, but very often when we play they have to go in all sorts of directions. So just showing them what does it feel like. And then you go between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, and you can also play with all sorts of things in your mind, like thinking about your fingers lengthening all the way from the elbow and so on, then going to the other hand. It's a really, really nice thing to do, and I also find that it calms me down when I can feel my fingers having lots of space and yeah, having quite a bit of massage. Yeah, it might be quite funny, but you have to do silly things when you're a musician. And that reminds me, I was reading an interview with an actor. I don't remember the name. It was a Polish actor. I was always really bad at celebrities, but he was reminding himself about one particular memory when he was at the school, at the conservatory. Is that where actors go? Well, the school where the actors are training after they do their A-levels, before they go working in the movie. And he recalled a teacher saying, if you're bored, if you're ever bored as an actor, just find something for yourself to learn. If you've got a ping pong ball, just try to throw it against the wall and catch it, or try to throw it against your knee. And the point of that was that as an actor, you have to do lots of different things in life. And you never know when a silly skill of throwing a ping pong ball against the wall is something that you will need to use in some particular movie. And I think that's kind of similar with the warm-up on the harp. Try to make your warm-up as varied as possible and go for some really unexpected things, because you never know when they might be actually useful in the piece. For example, for a while I was practicing scales with playing third and fourth finger. For example, C fourth finger, the third finger, and going 4, third, fourth, third, fourth, third, fourth, third. I don't recall if there was a piece where I have had to use that, but you never know. It might be useful one day. And there was a time when I was doing all sorts of exercises, going with 4-2, 3-1 and back, and then going 3-2, 4-1, and 1-2, 3-4. These are all really good. You will find them in the conditioning exercises by Salcedo. And it's getting really, really crazy when you try to do different things with other hands. For example, left hand 3-2, right hand 1-2. Let's see if we can do it. Yeah, it worked. So yeah, there are lots lots and lots of ways, and try to be really creative with that, because it will all be useful. I can't imagine which would be useful to practice. Let me see if there is anything else before we finish. Elisa says, thanks, you're very welcome. And that's a very interesting question, actually. And if I hear from anyone more experienced, other harpists, other teachers, professionals, I will definitely let you know. It might be worth also asking non-harpist musicians who are not harpists or athletes. Might be a good idea. How do they know that they are sufficiently warm up? They probably check their heart rate, which might not quite work on harp, but you don't know, they might have some useful advice. Okay, I guess that's it. I'll be looking forward to seeing you next week. Next week, the topic will be blister care. I've done some stories on Instagram, and I've actually written a blog post, but I'm still getting asked about this particular topic, so I thought I'll make live on that. The live will be without a harp for once, because I will not have my harp with me that particular day, but because I see people still going and checking out the article, the blog post that I've done on blisters. That's usually the very first thing people do when they go to my blog. I thought it's worth doing a live on that. So let me know if you have any questions before that about blisters, and in the meantime, I wish you a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Take care.